disclaimers about me. So the first one is I make jokes at really inappropriate times, okay? So if I'm making a joke about something and it sounds like I really shouldn't be, I probably am making a joke. It might be morbid, but sometimes that's how you get through things. You gotta laugh through it. So feel free to laugh if I make a joke and it feels like maybe you shouldn't. It's okay. So the other thing is I was never a crier, but then I had my son. And I visit Hot Mess Hotel all the time now. So, also, if you want to cry with me, that's okay too. So, my name is Shannon. I grew up as the youngest of 5, so it went girl, girl, boy, boy, me. And so if you can imagine, I kind of felt like I was by myself there. My sisters would pair off, and then my brothers would pair off, and then it was me. It wasn't their fault, I get it. We're all each other's best friends now, which is awesome. But back, growing up, it was kind of hard. My sisters are almost 10 and 7 years older than me, and so, I get they don't want to hang out with their little sister. When you're 15 and 5, it's kind of a big age gap. And then my brothers are boys. They didn't really want to hang out with their little sister. So I get it. But it just left me feeling like, okay, well, where do I fit in here? And it left me playing a lot of games by myself, because I still want to play those games. So Battleship and Guess Who were the hardest. Don't worry, I still made it work. So we grew up in a really small town, Caratug. You guys are all familiar with Caratug? All right, so back when we lived there, the population was less than 100, and our family basically made up half of it. So it was such a small town. It was we had a one-room schoolhouse, and I was the only one in my class. Our neighbor drove her station wagon, and that was our bus. So it sounds like I'm describing a 1950s black and white sitcom. But we used to joke that we pretty much lived in the Mayberry of Maine. My dad was also in law enforcement, like Andy Taylor, and he kind of has Andy Taylor vibes. So his office was right next to our house, so we could go in and see him and get advice from him whenever. And we knew everybody on the street. We'd go up and down. Seriously, we grew up in Mayberry, okay? But it was amazing. It was a really good environment to be raised in. The only thing is, again, I'm the only one in my class. Still not a lot of people to hang out with. So again, I'm still kind of feeling like I don't know where I fit in. Eventually, when I was 9, we moved to another huge town, Bingham. It was huge to me, though, because I went to a class of 30 people. It's massive. But it felt large at that time. And I had no experience hanging out with females. And I don't know where I got this idea, but I was like, oh, I know how to fit in. Females are really ditzy, okay? They're gonna really like me if I'm just flailing around and ditzy. So, on my first day of school, we were playing basketball. I was playing basketball with the boys, and I was getting really aggressive and obnoxious, and then I was like, oh no, I'm not supposed to do this. I'm supposed to be ditzy. So the ball came to me, and I fumbled it, and I was like, oh no. And turns out that's not how to make friends. So all the girls were sitting on the bleachers, and I looked over, and those looks that especially in junior high, girls would give that you did not do something right. It's kind of like yeah, I got a lot of those. Yeah, and I was so I kind of figured out, okay, I'm not doing something right. Something is not adding up. I would love to say that was the stupidest thing I did in school, but unfortunately I could sit here and we could have a full day of me telling you stupid things I did in order to try and fit in. And it wasn't working. I couldn't figure out my place and where I fit in. And it was hard because I wasn't feeling like I was fitting in at home, and I wasn't feeling like I was fitting in school, and I would feel like, okay, maybe I'm making friends, and I had somebody invite me over, and she started talking kind of meanly about some of the other girls. And I was like, okay, this is strange. But then I went to school the next day, and she had told all of those girls that I had said all those things. And so it was really hard. Things were coming out that weren't necessarily true. And then I would feel like I was, okay, I'm getting better, I'm figuring it out, I'm making friends, and we'd take pictures together. And then a little while later, I'd walk by the trash in this classroom, and I would see all the pictures that had me in it in the trash. Or I'd see that my face was ripped out of the picture and thrown in the trash. And so it was hard. I just felt I wasn't connecting, and I was missing something. And no matter how hard I tried, I was doing the wrong things. And then invitations got sent around in the class. Invitations to an I Hate Shannon party. And everybody in the class went, except for a couple people. And that was hard, at 10 years old, that's a big rejection that you don't really know how to process. Like, these are your peers, these are the people you're really wanting to fit into, especially because I'm new. I'm in a new school, I'm not fitting in. And so it was really a really challenging time. But then, so I started praying that God would just give me one person. I just want one person where I feel like I fit in. I feel like they understand me and I can be myself. And I prayed, can you just give me one husband that would make me feel like I finally fit in somewhere? And so even being insecure with how I was, I didn't really love myself at this point. But I would always finish up that prayer and say, but he doesn't have to love me as much as I love him, because I know that's probably not possible. Which is really sad to me to think now that that's what I had done. But because of that I Hate Shannon party, and let me say, the night that they had that party, they were all there, but I was at home thinking, you know what? No one hates Shannon as much as I hate Shannon. So I was determined to change myself. I was going to find a way to fit in. So I became an obsessive people pleaser. I studied people, watched what they liked, watched what they didn't like, and I made sure I tried to fit into the box that would make them like me. It doesn't always work, by the way. And unfortunately, what that brought out was now I have all these new insecurities, because the more you watch people, the more you pay attention to what they like and what you become a little obsessive about it, and then you now have way more insecurities. So that was hard. And that has even come out into my adulthood. So even so I was invited to a party recently by someone who is way cooler than me, okay? This is where I make awkward jokes at inappropriate times, because this is not really funny, but we can laugh about it, it's okay. So she's way cooler than me, and I quickly was excited, and I was like, yeah, let's do that. It was a Facebook invite, and then as soon as I accepted it, I went, oh no, I bet it was a mistake. I bet she did not mean to send me this invite. So I Facebook stalked her and looked at all of her friends and was like, she must have accidentally hit a different Shannon, she meant a different Shannon. So I was looking at all of the names of her friends and I don't think she meant to invite me, and now it's awkward because I said yes, and then if I show up, she's gonna be like, oh, she's not actually supposed to be here, but she said yes, so this is awkward. Yeah. Welcome to the Green Station. It's really fun. But yeah, so I've just struggled with insecurities for a really long time. And yeah, so I had prayed for that one person to feel like home. And so I met my husband in 2016, and on our first date, we had an awesome first date, and I drove home and I cried the whole way home, and I thought, wow, he's finally here. God brought him to me. And you know, like, when you're thinking of what you want for a future spouse, you kind of have a checklist of things that you want, right? And as we're on this date, I'm like, yep. And then I'm like, ooh, never thought of that, great. Yeah, so then we got married in 2018, and something changed almost as soon as we got married. And he started getting a little distant, and wouldn't really open up about it. I couldn't get him to open up about it. And couldn't really figure out what was going on. But I got pregnant the end of 2020, and he eventually started opening up. And he opened up that, sorry, it never gets easy to say, that he didn't want to be married to me. Sorry, told you, hot mess hotel here. See, awkward jokes at wrong times. Disclaimer, I warned you. Yeah, so he opened up that he was going to leave our marriage. And that rejection was the hardest one I've ever walked through. Because this is the person that vowed in front of all the people we knew and in front of God that he would not do this to me. This is the only person that promised that he wouldn't do this to me. So I started feeling, again, very broken, and like I didn't fit in anywhere, and like I was just a throwaway person. And there were really dark days, very vulnerable, susceptible to the enemy's lies, for sure. So I want to talk about a few women in the Bible who have also been there and experienced that. If you have your Bibles with you, if you could turn to John 4. So I'm going to read most of this. We're going to start right in the first section. So now when Jesus learned that the Pharisees had heard that Jesus was making and baptizing more disciples than John, although Jesus himself did not baptize, but only his disciples, he left Judea and departed again for Galilee. And he had to pass through Samaria. So he came to a town of Samaria called Sychar, near the field that Jacob had given to his son Joseph. Jacob's well was there, so Jesus, wearied as he was from his journey, was sitting beside the well. It was the 6th hour, which is around noon. A woman from Samaria came to draw water. Jesus said to her, "Give me a drink," for his disciples had gone away into the city to buy food. The Samaritan woman had said to him, "How is it that you, a Jew, ask for a drink from me, a woman of Samaria? For Jews have no dealings with Samaritans." Jesus answered her, "If you knew the gift of God and who it is that is saying to you, 'Give me a drink,' you would have asked him, and he would have given you the living water." The woman said to him, "Sir, you have nothing to draw your water with, and the well is deep. Where did you get that living water? Are you greater than our father Jacob? He gave us the well and drank it from it himself, as did his sons and his livestock." Jesus said to her, "Everyone who drinks of this water will be thirsty again, but whoever drinks of the water that I will give him will never be thirsty again. The water I will give him will become in him a spring of water welling up to eternal life." The woman said to him, "Sir, give me this water so that I will not be thirsty or have to come here to draw water." Jesus said to her, "Go, call your husband and come here." The woman answered him, "I have no husband." Jesus said to her, "You are right in saying, 'I have no husband,' for you have had 5 husbands, and the one you now have is not your husband. What you have said is true." The woman said to him, "Sir, I perceive that you are a prophet. Our fathers worshipped on this mountain, but you say that in Jerusalem is the place where people ought to worship." Jesus said to her, "Woman, believe me, the hour is coming when neither on this mountain nor in Jerusalem will you worship the Father. You worship what you do not know. We worship what we know. For salvation is from the Jews. But the hour is coming and is now here when the true worshipers will worship the Father in spirit and truth. For the Father is seeking such people to worship him. God is spirit, and those who worship him must worship in spirit and truth." The woman said to him, "I know that Messiah is coming, he who is called Christ. When he comes, he will tell us all things." Jesus said to her, I who speak to you am he." Just then his disciples came back. They marveled that he was talking with a woman, but no one said, "What do you seek?" or "Why are you talking with her?" So the woman left the water jar and went away into the town and said to the people, "Come, see a man who told me all that I ever did. Can this be the Christ?" They went out of the town and were coming to him. So I want to talk about this woman for a little bit. I feel like if you've been raised in a Christian church like me, probably you've heard that story before. But a lot of times I feel like what we focus on is her sin. What I want to do today is I want to focus on her pain. So I feel like we kind of look at this story in such a judgmental way, but I want to look at it with compassion. So here's this woman who has had 5 husbands, and the one she's currently with is not her husband. So let's look at like that time. Women were not allowed to divorce their husbands. Only men could divorce their wives. And also, during that time, if you couldn't get pregnant, they blamed the women. And back in that time as well, you could divorce if they just weren't making you happy. They could just send their wives away. Not saying that this is what has happened with this woman. I'm gonna kind of talk about a lot of different things. I don't want it to sound like I'm making assumptions about her at all. We don't know. What I read to you is the only information we have about her. But I think there's so much more to her story than like just a naughty girl, okay? I think there's a lot of brokenness there. And so if women couldn't divorce men, she's now been cast out 5 times. Let me tell you, this has happened to me once, and I could not go through it 5 times. So I don't look at this woman and judge her anymore. I look at her and I say, wow, she needed to be the woman to meet Jesus there that day. She needed him to meet her. So let's look at also, she's there at, it says the 6th hour, which is around noontime. It's not the time I would choose to go get water. It's when it's the hottest. In Genesis, it says that women usually went in the evening, which makes sense because it's going to be a lot cooler and the sun's not going to be right on you. So why wouldn't she have gone with a woman, right? We can assume that she was probably cast out from the rest of the community. She's probably not allowed to go back with her family. She's been cast out of her home and cast out of the community. She's kind of the disgraced person. So again, let's not look at her with judgment. Let's look at her with compassion. She's been rejected by everyone, all the people in her life. And so the other thing is, I don't think Jesus was looking at her with judgment. Okay? Put yourself in this situation. You go to the well to get some water. Random dude comes over, tells you all the things you did wrong, all your mistakes. Are you going to run back to the town and be like, come meet this awesome guy? No, I mean, I wouldn't. I would be like, go away from me. Like, you know, I honestly don't feel like he was approaching her and just shaming her. I honestly feel like he was approaching her and I think he gave her love in that moment. He talks about the living water and, you know, giving water that will make her never thirst again. That's salvation. And if you think about the salvation message, it is the truest love story there is out there.
Amen.
So I don't think that he was approaching her and just shaming her. I think he was approaching her and loving her.
You bet.
And I think that's why she wanted to run back to the town and say, come meet this man. And so what did she say? She said, actually I should open it up and read it again, sorry. When she ran into the town, she said, come, see a man who told me all I ever did. Can this be the Christ? So, come, see a man who told me all that I ever did. Come, see a man who lives and sees me, okay? That's important because I'm going to show you how cool God is, okay? Lives and sees me. Okay, so I want you to turn now to Genesis, I think it's 16. Yeah, Genesis 16. So we're going to talk about a woman named Hagar. And I'm going to kind of jump in the middle of her story, so I'm going to catch you up to speed. So there's Abraham and Sarah, and they can't have any children. So back in those times, you could take your maidservant and gift her to your husband, and he can get her pregnant, and then that's technically your child. I'm glad we don't still do that. But anyway, so this is what Sarah did. She sent Hagar to Abraham and said, go get pregnant so that I can have a child. And she did. She got pregnant. And then Sarah then gets jealous and doesn't like that and starts treating Hagar poorly. And then Hagar runs into the wilderness away from Sarah. And that's where we're going to kind of pick up. And the angel of the Lord meets her there. And so I've been reading the Bible through chronologically, which means I started in Genesis and I've been going through again. And I just thought it was really cool because I knew I was going to talk today about the woman at the well. And then when I came up to this story and the angel of the Lord meets Hagar, guess where he meets her? He met her at a well. And I'm pretty sure I screamed that in my room all by myself. I was like, he met her at a well! And I actually have a huge note that says that. So I was pretty excited because I was like, well, that ties in. Here's another broken woman. He's met her at a well. All right, so we're going to start in verse 7. All right, so the angel of the Lord found her by a spring of water in the wilderness, the spring on the way to Shur. And he said, Hagar, servant of Sarah, where have you come from and where are you going? She said, I am fleeing from my mistress Sarah. The angel of the Lord said to her, return to your mistress and submit to her. The angel of the Lord also said to her, I will surely multiply your offspring so that they cannot be numbered for multitude. And the angel of the Lord said to her, behold, you are pregnant, and you shall bear a son, and you shall call his name Ishmael, because the Lord has listened to your affliction. Remember one of my answers that I said earlier when Savannah and I were chatting, that one of the things that really pops out to me is when God hears us. So I'm going to repeat this again. okay? Because the Lord has listened to your affliction. So Ishmael shall be a wild donkey of a man, his hand against everyone, and everyone's hand against him. And he shall dwell over against all his kinsmen. So she called the name of the Lord who spoke to her. You are a God of seeing. For she said, truly here I have seen him who looks after me. Therefore the well was called Bir Lahai-roi, which Bir Lahai-roi means the well of him who lives and sees. What did the woman at the well run into the town and basically yell? He lives and he sees me. So my message for you guys today is he lives and he sees you.
Amen.
He sees you all. He sees your brokenness. He sees your pain. He sees everything you've walked through. He sees that rejection you've had to deal with. He sees that health scare you've had to walk through. He sees that broken family, that child you had to lose. He sees you. He lives. I just thought God was super cool. And in that moment, when I was reading that, I was totally fangirling God and was like, how cool is this? He met her at a well. But yeah, he met me at my lowest, darkest point. And he gave me this same message, that I am here. I live, and I see you. And I want him to have that same message for you guys today. He wants to meet you at your own well. And he wants to remind you that he lives and he does see you. So we have a God that loves you so much more than anything. And if you listen to anything I say today, this right here is going to be the most important thing. He wants a relationship with you. He does. And if you don't have that relationship with him, we have amazing ladies in this room that will help you figure out how to get there. But he wants that relationship with you because he wants to comfort you in that time. He sees that you're broken. He sees that you're hurting. And he wants to be that person that you can rely on. I tell you what, I wouldn't be here today. I went through some really dark days. Days that there were moments that I had to pray and say, God, just give me one more breath to keep living. I don't know how people get through these things without God. I don't know how that woman at the well got through 5 without God. But she needed Jesus to meet her there. And Hagar needed the Lord to meet her there. So he wants to take all these broken pieces in your life, the ones that you're constantly staring at, not knowing what to do with, and he wants to put them together for you. So I recently wrote a book called Embracing Unfair Situations. And Savannah had mentioned earlier that we both kind of had the Mosaic heart come to us. So in one of my darkest days, this part that I'm going to read to you, it came to me, and I just started writing it down, and it felt so applicable for what I was dealing with. And so I kind of tweaked it a little bit to make it kind of a note to the reader, and I'm going to read it to you guys right now. In school, we were given bags of all these perfect tiles. Each bag had a different color tile, and they were all formed into different shapes. The teacher then gave us each a tool that was used to break the tiles and instructed us to select tiles that we wanted to use and break them. I took each perfect tile, and while using a lot of pressure with the tool, the tiles broke in front of me. As each tile broke, the beauty and perfection of the tile disappeared, and I was left with an assortment of broken, colorful pieces on my desk. Picking up one piece at a time, I worked with the broken tiles, weaving all the colors and unique shapes and connecting them with a strong adhesive until my project was complete. Rather than having a few perfectly square red, yellow, and blue tiles, I now had a beautiful mosaic with all the colors weaving together imperfectly. It was rough, lacking the once smooth edges, but the beauty it held was much greater. The pieces given to us by the teacher were pretty, but nothing special. Each student had the same exact thing. But when we finished our projects, each of us now had a masterpiece specifically unique to us. As I look at the broken pieces of my life, I can't help but see them resemble those broken tiles. Each bag of perfectly shaped and colored tiles represented a different aspect of my life that I thought was okay the way it was. But walking through such intense pain and pressure as each piece of me broke left me feeling like it was more than I could handle. I questioned God as to why he broke something that was already fine the way it was. And then more broke, and then more. Seeing the horror of the broken pieces displayed in front of me, I felt so robbed. My life had been good, things were going well. Why am I now staring at the shattered pieces of all the things I thought were good? How could God ever fix this? Each part of my life had been beautiful, and now they're rough, damaged, impossible to put back together perfectly again, and will forever have scars proving that they went through so much pressure and pain. I was hopeless, looking at the broken pieces because I had no clue how to put them back together. But the artist took each piece and weaved them together to create something much more beautiful. I didn't realize at the time, as I was going through the pain and pressure, what God could do with the broken pieces. All I saw was brokenness, but God saw a masterpiece. Amen. And what I thought was fine the way it was had to be broken for it to become the beauty that it now is. With all the pieces bonded firmly together, a new strength was formed. Sweet friend, you may not see what God can do with your broken pieces right now, but I promise you that he has an amazing plan. Each masterpiece that the artist creates is unique. Your broken pieces will form their own beautiful and unique mosaic. No one else has your story. No one else has walked the journey you have walked with your personality or your specific details. God will work a new and beautiful creation inside of you. And I hope one day you can look at the broken pieces of your life and see how he has woven them together to create a stronger, more beautifully unique you. And that is my prayer for you guys today. That whatever you're holding on to, just please let him have it. It's much better with him. So that kind of gets us into our activation today of what I wanted to do with you. I don't know if you've noticed these wells up here. We have named them Bir Lahairoi, which if you remember from Hagar's story, it's the well of him who lives and sees. So also in your notebooks, we put in an envelope that has some paper in it, if you want to pull those out. So this paper is special. It dissolves. So what we want you to do is we're going to have you look at those as your broken pieces. So these are your broken pieces. What I want you to do is take a pen and write on them. Maybe write what you're dealing with, what you're working through, what your heartbreak is. And we have these wells that have water in them, and when you put them in the water, those paper will dissolve. And so the symbol that we want to have for this is that we want you to go meet Jesus at the well. Go meet God at the well. And when you hand over your brokenness and your most vulnerable moment, he's going to clear it away. He's going to hold on to it. And that's what we want for you guys. So however you want to do it, if you can't even write it down, that's okay. If you want to come up and have a moment at the well, if you want to be with friends and write things together, that's fine. If you want to just have a moment by yourself and pray and just kind of open up your heart to whatever brokenness might pour out, you can pray over it in your seat and then come up to the well when you're ready. We have lovely women willing to pray with you. Savannah and I will also be available. So whatever the Lord moves your heart to do. However that looks for you, we have those walls available, we have the people available. I love you guys.